Texas State starts a brawl, so of course the Sun Belt suspends the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. It's locked on Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. I'm Dave Schultz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. All right, we'll get to Coastal Carolina, their win over the weekend over Georgia State. They're becoming bowl eligible. And Southern Miss Hoops battled South Carolina almost, but that's a tough loss. All right. But let's first talk about the Sun Belt handing out the suspensions. And this is what I was going to talk about anyways. As we mentioned yesterday, we're just going to talk about the games and then the aftermath. And I did want to talk about, we see this all the time, and I'm impressed. They didn't play football at all growing up. Mama Schultz didn't want any part of that. Nonetheless, I would imagine it is really tough to be on the field for 58 minutes, be in a game for that long, and then all of a sudden you got to turn it off, right? Texas State is battling, and then Lunch Winfield gets a first down, and you got to cool your jets. And it's not easy. You see it in the pros, high school, everyone takes a knee, and I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, all right? I thought I saw Alexander from Texas State, I say dapping up, but doing the bro hugs, right? Good game, right? Take a knee, it's a two-hand touch type of deal. And then, you're hugging it out, waiting for the next play to go. Congratulations, we'll go on our own way, all right? So I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. However, you could sort of see this one coming because after the Cajuns got a first down, defensive lineman Tymere Jackson starts swinging away. What happens? He gets a 15-yard penalty. Not thrown out of the game. Wasn't thrown out of the game. Gets a 15-yard penalty. So you really could have had leadership on, say, the Texas State Bobcats side. Everybody come over here. We're getting out of here with a loss, but we're going to get out of here with some dignity. That's not what happened. So the videos being shown is after the fight started. Apparently, the Cajuns were trying to do their post-game prayer, and Texas State didn't want any part of that to happen. So Texas State starts wailing away. You can see the video, and it's not like the Cajuns didn't fight back because they did. But as head coach Mike Desimo said, if you get punched in the jaw walking down the street, you're going to punch back. And that's what happened. And now the Cajuns are severely hurt. Although a lot of these guys are on the bench. Some of these guys don't even appear, from what I saw, on the Cajuns depth chart. Doesn't mean they didn't lose some key players. All right. They lost some very key players. Let me see if I had the list here. Tyrese Skipper is out not only for 2 games, but he's out for the rest of the season. All right, we'll get to that here in a minute. Tyrese Skipper is the Cajun starting safety. He's out for the remainder of the season, including the bowl game. He's a starting safety. Courtline Flowers, starting corner. Cody Jackson, backup safety. All right, now Caleb Edwards, Colin Jacob, Evan Stroman, and D'Antonio Lesueur, I did not see them on the 2 deep. All right. As for Texas State, Tymere Jackson was suspended 2 games, not the whole season. The whole thing basically started because of him. Kamari Terrell is a starter, but Justin DeLeon is a backup. Kieran Boudra is a backup. I think Dieter is a backup, and Deverick Woods is a backup. All right. But now the Cajuns, going into Arkansas State, trying to defend Jalen Rayner and that passing attack, are down 2 safeties and a corner. That's ridiculous. All right. It should not have been that way. All right. You got to, when you're doing video, I get it in the field of play. The second guy always gets caught because we're just going to lay out the penalty right here and now. Okay, we got video. The team who started it should have gotten a much more harsh penalty, all right, than the team who tried to finish it. Also, I'm going to do this, all right? We don't need names or anything like that. But remember, when Walker Howard got hurt, we didn't know the injury. We didn't know the extent of it until Matt Moscona with Locked On LSU piped up and told us what it was. Mostly because he's a Catholic alum, Walker Howard's a Catholic alum, and he probably has some connections. Are we ever going to find out exactly what happened? What did Tyrese Skipper do? Now, someone on Twitter said something about one of the Cajuns players, although it wasn't Tyrese Skipper, going and attacking the locker room. I don't know what that means for Texas State, but I want to hear, right, if there was, I wouldn't say aggressive media, but, just we need to find out what exactly happened, because there's got to be a reason that Tyrese Skipper is gone for the season. All right. And here's the other thing that I don't particularly like, okay? We get the whole press release, all right? There is no place for this type of behavior in college football. This unfortunate postgame incident overshadowed what was a competitive regional rivalry game on the field, said Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill. While the spirit of the competition is central to what we do in college athletics, postgame actions like this will not be tolerated in the Sunbelt Conference. Okay. He hands out the suspensions. The Sunbelt considers this matter closed, and we will have no further comment. No. That's not right. What? That's kind of like the officials on the field. Don't have to tell us why they made a certain call or what they saw. And yet the players have to deal with it. The coaches have to deal with it. Why shouldn't Keith Gill, the Sunbelt media, got a chance to talk to all the football coaches today, the ones that won and the ones that lost? Why doesn't Keith Gill go on Zoom and say, this is what we saw, this is what our investigation turned up, and this is why we're doing it? But he just stands by the suspensions and doesn't explain the actions. So we're left to wonder what exactly happened, or we're going to leave it up to the Lafayette media to find out. And I will read a couple. I'll read a tweet. I like having fun with my buddy Jay Walker, the legendary Ragin Cajuns radio broadcaster. All right. And because it was, I agree with him, except one thing. So he goes all Kevin Bacon in Animal House. I guess if someone starts extracurricular activities on the field, the other team should just say, thank you, sir, might have another. All right. This was the quote from the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. This is what they said. We thank the Sunbelt Conference for its review of the incidents following Saturday's football game against Texas State. We understand the league's decision to hold the individuals involved accountable for their actions. As a program, we take this matter seriously, and we use the experience to ensure that our actions align with the values of both our conference and our university. I mean, that sounds like, thank you, sir, might have another, if you ask me. That's what that sounds like. Mike Desimo didn't say that. You can see his video. Yeah, that's posted. Jamarcus Fitzpatrick posted the video. I'm sure others have it as well. But he didn't understand it. All right. And that's the problem, is that you could see this one coming. Sometimes these things start organically, all right, or out of nowhere. This one did not. This one we saw coming because that penalty came with about a minute to go after the Cajuns had gotten the first down with about a minute. Well, 2 minutes. They got the first down right after the 2-minute timeout. I think it's a bad job by the Sunbelt. It's disappointing. The Cajuns are going to be behind the 8 ball. Again, hashtag always the bright side. They're not playing Saturday. They're playing, a week from Thursday. So they get a little bit extra time to work out their depth chart. But a really tough blow for the Cajuns. And, Texas State's missing a couple players going up against Southern Miss. But They're the ones who started it. They should be kicked out. And, Tymere Jackson should probably be kicked off the squad because he's wailing away right after the Cajuns had to put away the game. All right, let me know what you think. I'm sure this won't get much reaction. We'll see. All right, let's take a timeout. Let's talk about Coastal Carolina. And again, what a turnaround season. I mean, we're all about JMU. We're all about Southern Miss. We were all about Troy. But Coastal Carolina is having a fantastic season and one that it didn't appear that was coming this direction. We'll talk about that next after I tell you about Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Isn't it almost over? The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. We're recording this Monday. We're going to talk about JMU and App State on Saturday. Lowest ticket available on Game Time was $84 and a lot more pricier than that. You need to hop on those available tickets at the best prices now. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Coastal Carolina, relatively, I wouldn't say easy, I guess. First quarter was 14-14. They defeat Georgia State 40-27. Yards-wise, this was basically even. Coastal Carolina, 444 yards. Georgia State, 423. Georgia State turned the ball over. They had 2 turnovers in the ball game. Coastal Carolina did not. Not a whole lot of defense in this one. Georgia State was 4 for 4 in the red zone. Coastal Carolina, 5 for 5. Samara Kieran, 11 out of 18, 120, but 3 touchdown passes. He also ran for 123 yards, 10 attempts. He's a rushing first down. And he also had a touchdown in this one as well on the ground. So that's 4 touchdowns for Collier. All right. I think Cameron Brown started it, 9 out of 12, 116 yards with a touchdown. TJ Finley came in later, 16 out of 26, did throw an interception late that, put the game away, but it was already 40-27. The interception may have helped Schultz win a parlay. Just throwing it out there. All right. Had Coastal Carolina by 7.5. Again, on a side note, my picks last week, and you knew they were good because I mentioned them. We had Coastal Carolina covering. We had Southern Miss covering. We had the Cajuns covering. And we had JMU winning, but Marshall covering. All right. Also, goodness gracious, Bill Connolly. Love me some Bill Connolly. But based on his statistics and spreadsheet, and he's much smarter than I am, he was like, Texas State was going to win this 97% of the time. It wasn't based on reality because they just hadn't won in a month. And the Cajuns seem to have found some offense. Back to Coastal Carolina. Sorry. Went on a side note. I went on a tangent. Big shock. All right, so Coastal Carolina, 40-27. Let me see here. They scored a bunch of unanswered. It was 14 all, and then they took a 40-14 lead. So Georgia State tied it up, but then Coastal Carolina kicked a bunch of field goals before putting it away with a couple of touchdowns. So Coastal Carolina, again, really impressive because they've struggled in the big way. We had Tim Beck on early on, right? In Virginia, No, they lost this past weekend, but they're much better than anybody thought they were going to be. They lose 48-7, slide by Charleston Southern 13-0, and then lose to East Carolina 38-0. East Carolina's good. They're not 38-0 good. I'd love to see this ball game again. Then they blow out South Alabama. Beck admitted that he worked his team too hard before the Old Dominion ball game, but then survived Monroe in a monsoon, come from behind to defeat App State, get all those turnovers from Marshall and blow out the Herd. And rather easily after the first quarter over Georgia State. The score not nearly as close as that game would indicate. And so now you are not only you're 6-3 overall, but you're 5-1 in the conference, and you're hosting JMU. Now, and this is where the coaching is going to have to come in, because they have 2 ball games, and they have a huge ball game. First of all, they have Georgia Southern. All right, Georgia Southern's coming off a nice win over App State. And then they're playing South Carolina. Interesting about how that game could go. Because I presume Shane Beamer's on the hot seat a little bit, although is he getting the Virginia Tech job? I don't know. I have no idea. It has not been the season that everybody thought it was going to be for South Carolina. And that game is on national TV. It is. It's on the SEC network. Hopefully we have, the YouTube, Google, the YouTube Disney thing figured out by then. Goodness. But if you beat Georgia Southern, you go and you're at Statesboro, so that's not going to be easy. But say you, for this argument's sake, this discussion, you move to 6-1 and you're 7-3, and you're finishing up with South Carolina and JMU. Could you imagine if they win those 2 ball games and they finish up the season 9-3? Holy cow. Even split them. Which one do you want to win more? I don't know. You want to beat South Carolina, a down South Carolina team, or playing for the Sun Belt Championship is obviously more important. But boy, beating South Carolina would be a lot of fun if you're Coastal Carolina, because in this case, you got to be a little bit better. Are you on the? I always get roped into that. South Carolina isn't very good, but they lost to LSU, who doesn't have an offense, but their defense is pretty good, and South Carolina scored 10 points. They lost to Oklahoma. They put up 7. They gave Alabama, probably should have won that football game, by the way. They should have beaten Alabama. And then they lose to Ole Miss 20-17. Now they're going to be coming off the game against A&M, and then they get Coastal, and then they get Clemson. Can both teams be playing a trap game? It can't be a trap game for Coastal Carolina if they're trying to win the Sun Belt, right? They could be focused on South Carolina, which is what you want to do. That a trap game is meaning you're going to be caught off guard because of the next game. And the next game is going to be big. It's going to be JMU. But usually that's in a lesser opponent. For example, South Carolina playing Coastal Carolina when their next ball game is Clemson. Could very well be a trap game. They got Coastal Carolina in between A&M and Clemson. Oh, that's a great chance for Coastal Carolina to come up with a win. And then all of a sudden, you win that ball game, that JMU Coastal Carolina game looks a lot better. A lot bigger. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll do a little bit of hoops. Tough loss for Southern Miss. We'll go over it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I watched it. I looked at the play-by-play. Got to learn how to finish. That's what happened. Southern Miss did not finish. Probably a game they should have won. All right. Maybe give South Carolina a little credit, but we'll talk about that right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets from everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting. especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every time, part of the Locked On Network, the number one sports podcast network out there. So thank you very much. We continue to grow every day. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. All right, Southern Miss, kind of under the radar ball game, unfortunately, because we're all still consumed with football. But this game was played on a Sunday, I believe. And South Carolina wins it 83-79 in overtime. Here's the thing about this game is that Southern Miss was in control late. And not by a little bit. By a lot. Israel Hart made a jumper with 3:50 left to go to put Southern Miss on top by 11. 11. Game's not over, but that's a big deficit to overcome in 4 minutes, okay? Michi Johnson for South Carolina ends up hitting a couple of three-pointers. In fact, he made 3 three-pointers. Oof. They were down 8. He made it 67-62. They're down 6. He made it 68-65. And he tied it up at 68. Maybe cover Michi Johnson. Nonetheless, Isaac Tavares made a layup, and then Hart fouled Johnson. He makes 2 free throws, and they go to overtime, which South Carolina wins the ballgame. All right, let's check out the stats overall. I mean, South Carolina shot less than 40%. That's really good defense. All right, here's where they lost the ballgame. All right, 16 3-pointers. South Carolina made 16 3-pointers. That's way too many. Southern Miss was just 5 of 22. South Carolina was 16 of 43. They outscored them 48-15 from the three-point land. Free throws were the same, 16 out of 21, 17 out of 21. So there's no home cooking there. Obviously, points in the paint is going to be led by Southern Miss, 34-14. Fouls were just about the same. Southern Miss had 1 more. South Carolina actually led by 16 in the first half, and it was down to 4 points at halftime. Rebounding was Southern Miss's edge. That is a tough loss for Southern Miss. Let's see. ESPN changes their box scores these days. Isaac Tavares, a big ball game, 25 points in 29 minutes. I mean, tough to do better than that. That's what we call efficient. 8 rebounds, 3 steals, 10 of 14 from the floor, 4-7 from the free throw line. Tylik Weeks had 20 points, 7 of 13 from the floor, 7 rebounds. And Israel Hart off the bench, he had 17 points and 4 assists. So we'll keep our eyes out for those games that are happening. Well, the other ball games that happened this weekend, kind of lesser ball games. South Alabama beat Spring Hill on Saturday. Tulane beat Texas State 79-71. Marshall over Toledo 85-73. So Marshall is 2-0 against the MAC. And Georgia Southern over UNC Asheville 93-91. On Monday, Georgia State is taking on Presbyterian, and Monroe has Rust. On Tuesday, App State's going to Ohio State. That's today. All right. And Old Dominion hosting Norfolk State. So crosstown rivals there. Troy with Pensacola Christian College. Coastal Carolina and Winthrop. Georgia Southern at Florida Gulf Coast. Cajuns hosting Ron Hunter and Tulane. Right. So far, the Cajuns, like Houston kind of did, playing some defense. Offensively, they're struggling. Offensively, they are not exactly a juggernaut. We'll see how that adjusts. But remember, Houston kind of plays defense, and that's where Quantus White comes from, So, under Kelvin Sampson. And Missouri State is hosting Arkansas State. All right. That is on Tuesday. On Wednesday, again, more people. UTSA and Texas State are playing. James Madison at Longwood, and Marshall is hosting Elon, their first home game. So that's where we are. Obviously, Sunbelt play doesn't start until, I think, the end of December, right? Do we know when it starts? Let's find out. Usually it starts right before the holidays. Let's see here. Cajuns get Southern Miss on 12/18. So midway through December. Okay. So you got 5 weeks to go before Sunbelt play happens. All right. All right. We will see. We're not going to get any more ramifications. The Sunbelt sends out a press release and doesn't have to explain its actions, which is lame. I'm hoping that somebody who covers the Cajuns will find out exactly what happened. There has to be a reason why Tyrese Skipper has been suspended for the remainder of the season. All right. Compared to Tymere Jackson, who started the whole thing, and he didn't even get thrown out of the game. So I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I just don't know what he did. And it'd be nice to know if the Sunbelt would explain why they were suspended. But kind of like referees, we don't have to explain ourselves. Players have to play, coaches have to coach, and then they have to face the media. The Sunbelt, like officials, don't have to face the media, right? And that's the sad thing, is that you could kind of see it coming. That's where you kind of, all right, guys, settle down, take a knee. We're going to get out of here fast, all right? But that's not what happened. Sometimes life is not fair. And that's what seems to be the case here. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will do a early-ish preview of, is it week 12? I think it's week 12 of the college football season. All right. Coming up. So we'll do an early-ish preview on that on Tuesday. We'll see if we get any more news on anything that's going on. And we thank you for tuning in. All right. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day, part of the #1 sports podcast network, Locked On. Thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you so much. We will talk to you again on Wednesday.